How's it going, everybody? Just wanted to come on and do this live really quick. It is September 11th, so this is the anniversary of September. The two planes were flown into um, the Trade Center buildings in New York, which were the tallest buildings in New York at the time. And also, there was a another plane that was hijacked that crashed in Pennsylvania. There was another plane that was hijacked that was crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. So all I want to do is talk about what I was doing that day. I'll never forget that day. So, and I was in high school at the time. I'm trying to remember if I was a senior or a junior. I don't remember. I was one or the other, um, but I was in high school, and I remember waking up, and I didn't know anything about it, by the way. Nothing. I woke up that September 11th. I had breakfast. The TV was not on. There was no smartphones at the time. There was none of that, right? There was internet, but I didn't go to my computer, nothing. Like I just woke up, got ready, and then my stepdad drove me to my high school, and I remember getting there, say what's up to my friends. I don't remember anybody talking about it. Like I just don't. It wasn't until my very first class, right? And it was in U.S. history class. I I go in and the teacher just he just had a different demeanor about him. I remember that, but I just thought maybe I don't know. I don't remember what I thought. I just remember what I kind of, I guess if you want to call it, observed. Right. What's up, JC? How's it going, brother? So I go to the classroom. I go in anyway. I sit down, and that's what we all did, right? We all sat down, and I don't know if anybody else in my class knew, but I didn't know, right? And some of my friends in the class didn't know, and I'm assuming that because they didn't tell me anything. That's something you would say. So he stands up, and the bell sounds and everything. He stands up. They had like a little podium, and I'm vaguely paying attention. Like I'm like not paying that much attention. I forgot what was distracting me, but I just remember hearing, yeah, you guys saw what happened, and they flew the plane into the building, right? And he said, I'm pretty confident someone flew it. How could you miss a building like that? And I guess he knew a little bit about aviation. It's like there's no way a plane could be flying that low. And at this time, you got to remember, only one of the buildings was hit from his perspective, right? And and I'm just like, what? Like, a building was hit in New York, And again, at the time, the media's talking. Was it an accident? Was it on purpose? There was a lot of debate going on, right? And then the second one happened, and I remember when the second one happened, because he had told us that he turned on the TV. Every classroom had a television in it. Like, and we're watching it, and I'll never forget seeing the second plane hit. And the moment it hit, like you just knew this was orchestrated, right? And I know people have their conspiracy theories. There's the official story. That my point is, as a teenage kid in high school, I saw this and I said, "Whoa!" Any talk about this being an accident, forget it. You know what I mean? You can put that to the side. You can that's whatever, bro. That was on purpose. right? And then you hear, I forget which one was first, but then you hear about the Pentagon one. That one that we heard about, right? Where like a plane crashes with the Pentagon. Like, whoa! At that point, we're like, this is definitely some terrorist shit. Like whether it's domestic or foreign, who knows? But it's some terrorist shit going on. Um, and that's what I remember about that day. As far as the morning goes, there was a early release. They shut the school down early, let us go home. I ended up having to walk home because it was whatever. It was about 2.5 miles away, so it's whatever. I walked home, and I remember getting home, and my a couple hours later, my stepdad gets there. His job got shut down early. Um, my mom's job got shut down early. Like it's a lot. I just remember a lot of that going on, and then my mom's like, "Oh, we got to get ready to go to church." For some reason, people went to the church. I remember the church was packed. At least the one here. Shortly after that, like the church was packed. Like people were definitely panicked and looking for prayer or something. You know what I mean? I'm just a teenage kid. That's all I am, right? And wondering and curious on like, what the hell is going on, and that's at that point you're watching the news, you're hearing about Osama bin Laden, you're hearing about football games got canceled, the Trinidad Hopkins fight got canceled, a lot of shit got canceled. I remember that, and then our world just changed forever. It just changed forever at that point. Our world. Um, the way we're stretched in airports and stuff like that. It's heavily influenced by that. But not only that, the wars we started. We ended up invading Afghanistan. I mean, remained there for decades, almost. I mean, over 2 decades. We a couple years later, we somehow ended up invading Iraq, and the country was heavily behind it. And look, I was just a kid at the time, so I was just a teenager, right? And when the Iraq War happened, I was in my early 20s, so everything was just it happened very very fast. Everything like those few years all seemed so tied together, and everything just changed. Everything. Like we ended up being in multiple countries. We ended up doing a lot of things. Shout out to JC. For me, I was overseas. Had just gotten off a night shift. I was passed out. Next thing you know, someone's banging on my door, screaming. I get up the door. I open the door, and I was told to pack your bags and report to deploy. Man, T-Pain was in Moscow back then. Interesting. So, so there you go. Interesting. I the biggest regret for me is 100% the this. I don't want to get political or nothing, but the way the United States government kind of abused the situation. Because look, this country was, if you're like in your early 20s, mid 20s, you're just not gonna recall any of this. But if you're in your mid 30s or up, you'll definitely recall a lot of this. Like this country was extremely. I never seen this country so patriotic in my life. This country was patriotic as hell. Like it was patriotic, bro. And in my high school, everybody was all patriotic. Like everybody. Um, I'll never forget that. This country was extremely united. Like it's amazing how united this country was. And George W. Bush went from an extremely unpopular president to very high in the approval ratings after that happened. You know what I mean? Like very high. I'll never forget how popular George W. Bush was. People that didn't like him were saying things like, "Oh, I'm glad he was president because it was Gorham. It would be screwed." And I just remember people saying stuff like that. Whether it's true or not, it's what they were saying. And then and led us to Afghanistan. Um, that is what it is. And look how long we were there. You're right, JC, not anymore. And then that led us to Iraq. And I remember they would take polls, and most Americans thought Iraq had something to do with 9/11, which is astonishing, right? How many people were wrong about that? And as a kid in my early 20s, I was kind of brainwashed. I was for the Iraq war for some reason. I remember arguing with family members about it and looking back, thinking how embarrassed I am of that. But I was just, again, caught up with the whole thing. You know what I mean? But the adults, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s should have known better, right? I mean, you would think, but it is what it is. I landed in Afghanistan 27 September 2001, JC says. There you go, man. Thank you for your service, JC. It's crazy. Like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you how it was in Afghanistan, like how it was there. I mean, you would have a better perspective of that, but from what I've read, from things I've seen on TV and what I've heard of the soldiers say, and Afghanistan was just almost it was impossible to control and contain, from my understanding. So, and look how long we were there. I mean, it's just, and then the dudes that we went to war with ended up in power anyway. Like, it's crazy. Like, you can't make the shit up. Shout out to Bruce Gass. Salute to Bruce Gass, man. I don't know where Bruce Gass was in September 11th, 2001. I don't know. Or yeah, 2001 it was, right? I'm pretty sure. But Bruce Gass, he's like, I'm not saying I'm a spring chicken, but Bruce Gass is older than me. He's my elder, you know what I mean? So I'm interested to know what his, like, how he saw things, right? Like how did Bruce Gass react when we were going to go to Afghanistan? Like, what was his perspective? Like what did Bruce Gass think when we went to Iraq a couple of years later? And they were trying to justify that. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you, man, like, Iraq didn't age well. It just didn't. And it didn't age well because it was based on lies. You know what I mean? The way they kind of made it seem like 9/11 was attached to it in a very political way, and then the way, because people eventually wake up, right? Like I at some point like turned on the war. Like at some point I was like, especially when like there was no weapons of mass destruction, like they said there was. Whether intelligence thought there was or wasn't, like I remember that was a turning point for me, right? And then when there was an image I saw of, like, I remember when they toppled, because I was at school when they toppled the statue of Saddam Hussein, right? And like I remember that, and I remember how like when Bush gave that speech saying they declare victory and all major combat is done, and this from here on out it's the easy part, and it ended up being the hard part, right? Maintaining and containing is just harder, right? Occupying is just harder than just beating an army head on. It just is. So there you go. Well, JC, when he gave that speech, though, right? Like, Hey, JC, can you jump on, JC? Like, you don't have to come on camera, but like, can you talk like on video? I'll send you the link, but you don't have to if you don't want to, but it's up to you. Um, but yeah, I remember the speech, and the thing again. I'm a kid in my early 20s, right? And Bush was popular at the time, so when he said, "Oh, all major combat is done, we've won," like this is it. You know what I mean? He was saying with confidence, we were greeted as liberators, and they love us over there, and you're believing this, right? And then the media, Iraq is a big reason why people woke up with about the media, right? The New York Times, the CNNs of the world, Fox News, MSNBC, like they were all heavily behind the damn war, right? An MSNBC anchor got fired for speaking out or questioning the Iraq war, right? Like they were all behind. Like the only time the left wing, right wing media ever agrees and bands together is when we invade a country, right? It's the only time. But and the lies that were told and spread in Iraq was amazing. You know what I mean? JC's in the Pentagon, bro. Like this is crazy, bro. GGC. Oh man. Well, there you go. But anyway, thanks for your service, brother. But see, JC's like doing important shit, bro. He's like, he's probably signing off on his wars I'm talking shit about and shit. Like, I'm just kidding. But I'm not talking shit about defense contractors, and he's like signing the shit. You know? But it's just a job, you know. I got you, man. So that's the legacy of 9/11, bro. Like there's two legacies. We saw the worst of humanity, and we saw the best of humanity. I'll say that. Um, what was done to the people that did the attacks in the tower, and again, back to just the mistrust of the media, like some of the suicide bombers and like suicide, what do they call them, jihadists or whatever, like ended up being alive later on, even though they reported them being in the plane. The whole thing was crazy, bro. So I understand why people have a mistrust in the media. But so I don't want to dive too much into that, but nonetheless, it takes a certain level of evil to do that. I personally didn't know anybody in the towers, right? But I had a friend that her uncle was in the Twin Towers when that happened, and she didn't know if her uncle was dead or alive, and they never found him. So obviously we know what happened, right? But they never found his body, and that's tragic. And I haven't talked to her in years, but we kind of after like shortly after high school, it didn't. You know how it is after high school, you just stop talking to people. It's not on purpose; it just happens. But so I don't know what happened with her, but I just remember that. I believe that's the only person I personally knew that knew someone um, that was in the towers or anywhere in the planes or anything. Um, it, so I could only imagine how devastating that was. But just think about this, right? There was people in the towers that chose to jump off a building. That's the fate they chose. Some people held hands and jumped off the building. They broke the glass and jumped off multiple, dozens upon dozens upon dozens of floors, 50 stories, 60 stories, whatever it was, 70 stories, right? And they made a decision to jump off. because that was a better fate than burning alive, right? That tells you how horrific fire is, right? Like it just does. And you can see that it's devastating to watch, bro. I remember when I watched it as a teen, I was like, damn, that was extremely devastating to watch. But we also saw, like, when the towers fell, and like, people banded together to try to save people, right? And in that part where we saw the best of humanity, right? And it shouldn't take the worst of humanity to see the best of humanity. It shouldn't. But life is a balance sometimes, and that's just sometimes how it goes, right? The police officers, and especially firemen, that lost their lives trying to save people, right? That was, I mean, it was what it was, right? And then regular citizens that were also trying to help people as well, right? And New Yorkers banded together that day. I wasn't in New York, right? But they give a helping hand to people in need, and there's film of it, and there's testimonies and stories of people that went into buildings, stories of officers and firemen that saved people, and they would keep going back to save others, and they never came back, right? Like, think about that. Imagine saving lives. Imagine, like, that's your dad, or your husband, or whatever, right? Your brother, and you hear that he kept saving lives and he never made it. Like, you would think, you save one life, you've done your duty, right? I mean, that's selfless enough. But to keep going back, I mean, I think that shows the power of generosity, and the best in us, right? That's what that shows. And it's unfortunate, and it's unfair, and people shouldn't have had to have that fate, but it is what it is. All right, JC, just let me know, brother. So let me know. But it's I don't want you to lose your job, JC. You don't have to say anything crazy. You can just talk about that day. You know what I mean? But that's my thoughts. You know what I mean? I don't know what thoughts you guys have, but um, I know a lot of conspiracy theories came out after that, and um, but that's just the way things are, bro. Like, what a crazy day. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago. It's crazy how long ago it was. It's crazy. Like, it's nuts, actually, how long ago it was. Well, what has it been now? Like 13 years? Something like that? No, not 13, 23 years. I'm talking about 22 years. It's been 22 years, bro. Like, I have more separation now to when it happened than when I was born and when it happened. That's hard to believe. You know what I mean? Like, it's this. Like, I've lived longer in the post 9/11 than the pre 9/11. You know, like that's crazy. That's nuts, bro. Damn, that's nuts. You have to be like you have to be like 41 years old or something like that to have lived longer pre than post, right? That's how long ago that shit was. I still have the newspapers, by the way. For some reason, I bought the El Paso Times after that, and I still have the newspapers of when that happened. but the stories in it, like for some reason I kept it, but I still have it. Nuts. There is some things I disagree with now, though. Like, I don't like the way they handle things at airports. Personally, it's me. I don't like that we have to be in line so long with TSA and they check everything, and it's not efficient. You could maybe argue that it keeps us safer, I guess, but you could still make it just as safe, just be more efficient. But I don't think it makes us safer, and I'll tell you why. So, like here in Texas, hey, nobody checks your bags or anything when you first walk into the airport. Like, you know what I mean? Now, I haven't been to an airport since 2018 when I went to Seattle, but nobody checked anything when I first walked in, right? When I had I had like my big bag and then a small bag. So, and I remember thinking this. I go in there, it's me and a friend, and I see the long lines. I see all these people. I'm just surrounded by people, right? And if my objective was to kill people, right? I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but if I wanted to kill as many people as possible with a gun, I would go into an airport where all the people are all lined up, right? And they're rolled up like this, by the way, right? They're rolled up like in a zigzag. That's how long the lines are. I'll walk into an airport, take out the gun, start shooting. Like, you'll kill more people there than an airplane. Like it's just like, that's why I don't think it's safer. I just don't. It's someone's objective, especially today. Like, we go through more mass shootings than we do dudes with box cutters and planes. And also, if a box cutter with a plane happened today in a plane, I don't think they would successfully hijack the plane, because people now know what those dudes with box cutters would do. Back in 2001, when dudes had box cutters and hijacked the plane, I don't believe that your average dude in the plane thought to themselves, they're going to fly the plane and commit suicide themselves, right? Do some kamikaze shit into a building. I don't think they thought that. I think they thought they're holding us hostage, are better, in order for us to survive, we're going to have to just kind of listen to them. They're going to get what they want eventually. They may, if they're going to try to kill me, then I guess I'll try to fight then. I don't know what was going through the minds of people, but we saw what happened when the people in the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania understood what was up. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm not worried about a dude with a box cutter, bro. Like, I'm just not. If there's 20 dudes in there and one dude with a box cutter, we got it. You know what I mean? If that were to happen, right? I'm just saying, and I'm talking per ratio. But that's that. They would never open the pilot's door anymore, the cockpit or whatever. I'm sure every pilot, I'm sure there's a gun in there now. I'm sure they're armed. So why are we doing all this super extra shit at the airport still? Like it doesn't make any sense to me. You're not making it safer inside the airport. You're not. We all saw what happened with Bomac, right? Bomac was caught with a gun in the airport, is what it is. But like, someone could walk into an airport, they could check in their bag or whatever, their big bag, and they don't even have the check in the bag. I've gone to pick people up at airports when I worked at the dealership. Okay, that was close to the airport. You could just walk into an airport, and it's packed with people. And the more you walk towards the line where TSA is at, I mean, I mean, at that, there's no more vulnerable spot you're in than that. You're in a vulnerable state right there. So you're not making things safer. Shout out to Nando. 9/11 is a weird day. I don't think that most folks care about it anymore. It's like Secretary's Day. Gets acknowledged on TV and radio. All these 9/11 memorials everywhere that no one ever visits. Man, well, I'll be honest with you, bro. If I ever, I went as a teenager, but if I ever go back to New York, I'll go visit the memorial. You know what I mean? That's me. But I'm not. But I agree with you in the grand scheme of things. Like I'm not. It's like it's almost no different than remembering Pearl Harbor at this point, right? But if I went to Hawaii, I would like to visit Pearl Harbor, but it's not. You know, but I get what you're saying. Like I'm not doing a vigil or anything like that, right? So it is what it is. But maybe if I personally knew somebody that died in 9/11, I mean, that might sound selfish, but I personally didn't. I did have a friend that did, but so maybe it's different for her, right? So it just depends. But look at everything that happened afterwards. Like you can't go to an airport while standing in line for hours because it's being extra at the airport, right? Oh, we don't want what happened 9/11. We don't want it to happen again. It's not going to happen again. All you have to do is run the bags for metal detectors, right? And I get that people can have Glocks and not. There's Glocks that are ceramic, and I get all that, right? But we can speed up the process, bro. It's my opinion. Like the bags that are checked in and go to the bottom of the plane. I mean, we can speed up the process. My opinion, more manpower, and I think I don't know that we need to check old ladies and we need to check. I just feel like we're just checking too much. My opinion, but it's whatever. Having people stand around like sitting ducks isn't making things safer. It's my opinion, but knock on wood, nothing's happened yet. But what's going to happen when that does happen? When someone goes inside the airport and shoots up the place, then what? Are we going to make another line outside of the airport to come in the building? But then that line is vulnerable. I mean, what are we going to do? Right? So, but I guess one can argue, well, we're protecting the actual planes that are in the air. Fine, but still. More efficiency, in my opinion. But I don't know if JC's still there. You still there, JC? ¿Dónde está el JC? I don't know. Do you guys remember what was the first live event in the United States that happened in an arena? $5 Cash App to the first two, whoever guesses that. What was the first live arena, live event that occurred after 9/11? Who were the first to do it? There was somebody. Does anybody know? Does anybody want a clue? I know JC Man is trying to go out. So I think JC said it's a 30-minute walk. Damn. 30 minutes? I mean, shit. I don't know if I got 30 minutes, bro. But if you're there, let me know how far you are, like at least, so I have an idea. Are you guys Googling it or what? Like, what, you don't know? No, Bruce Goss, it was. I was about to say it wasn't Trinidad Hopkins. That was one of the first, but it wasn't the first. It was SmackDown. I don't know if it was Raw or SmackDown, but it was a WWF. They did the first event. They went live, and Vince gave a speech that you're not going to stop our way of life and all this other stuff. And somebody had to get the ball rolling. You know what I mean? That's what happened. Where is JC at? JC! See, I don't want to end the live, and then he's like, all right, I'm here, and then I'm not live anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I'll feel like a dick. I just want to know where he's at. Like, that's all. By the way, I should be live later with Calix. I'll text him a little bit so we can talk some box. You know what I mean? Make sure you guys follow me on Twitter at DStyleBoxing. Always there talking that boxing. You know what I mean? One last thing I want to say is after 9/11 and after what happened in Iraq, the fallout of it all, right? Because Iraq was an extension of all this, like a ripple effect. My trust for government, my trust for the media, like it went out the window. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't have any trust for it. That's the main legacy 9/11 left behind for me. You know what I mean? That's the bitterness it left behind. That everything that happened afterwards and everything we're doing now in the name of fighting terrorists and all this other shit, it's that is an unfortunate legacy it's left behind. And that is that. You know what I mean? But with that said, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get rolling. Shout out to JC. I do apologize, brother, but I'm not sure where you're at. But maybe another day we could kind of have a chit chat, brother. But I do got to get rolling though. This is DStyleBoxing. Keep it boxing, guys. I'm out. Peace. Well, we didn't even talk about it. I just said that out of habit, but we'll keep it boxing moving forward. All right, there we go. Peace.